up on American Medicine Today, insomnia, brain fog, anxiety, and burnout are all signs of adrenal dysfunction. Dr. Izabella Wentz tells us how we can balance our hormones by balancing our diet. Then, Stephen suffered from a bulging disc causing immense pain and forcing him to take pain pills. Thankfully, he discovered the Bonati Spine Institute and is now happy to be playing with his children pain-free. Finally, the United States has been outsourcing product safety and importation quality control to foreign governments. How is this illegal practice possible, and how do we protect ourselves from dangerous products? Find out coming up on American Medicine Today.
Featuring cutting-edge science and medical innovation, touching personal stories of recovery from pain, along with political, social, and healthcare issues plaguing our nation. This is American Medicine Today, brought to you by the Bonati Spine Institute and Alfred Bonati, MD.
Welcome to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker. So a new book is offering a life-changing program to help anyone who suffers from fatigue, poor memory, sleeplessness, and more, and is designed to get at the actual root cause of symptoms. Joining us to discuss is Dr. Izabella Wentz, aka the Thyroid Pharmacist and best-selling author of Adrenal Transformation Protocol. Welcome to the program, Dr. Wentz.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here with you.
Let's start with the nickname they gave you, Thyroid Pharmacist. Now, have you always been interested in thyroid health?
Oh man, full disclosure, I was not interested in thyroid health during pharmacy school. I thought it was this boring condition and you only needed one pill to feel better from it. Mm-hmm. And boy, was I wrong. When I got diagnosed with a thyroid condition myself in my 20s, I realized that there was much more to feeling better when you have a thyroid condition beyond thyroid medication.
I think your average layperson, probably myself included, don't even really know what it does and why there's deficiencies, or sometimes they're overactive and things like that. Explain what it does and then how it ties into this book and the adrenal glands.
Absolutely. So our thyroid gland runs the metabolism in our body. So it's responsible for helping us to keep a healthy amount of energy and for us to keep a healthy weight, among other things, as well as making sure that we have hair that isn't falling out, that we don't have pains throughout our bodies. Some of the main symptoms that women will have when they have hypothyroidism include brain fog, fatigue, undesirable weight gain, sometimes fertility issues, sometimes mood issues can occur from having a thyroid hormone imbalance.
You actually have a personal story, correct, with your own adrenal issues. Can you elaborate on that?
I got on my healing journey and I was diagnosed with a thyroid condition. I was so excited to get on thyroid medications, being a pharmacist, right? I was like, yes, this pill is going to give me the answer to everything that I'm going through. And yet the thyroid medications helped me, but not all the way. So I still had the fatigue. I still had anxiety attacks. I still had unrefreshing sleep and that awful brain fog, which is so common amongst people with thyroid issues. And so part of what I needed to do to get myself more in balance was address my stress response. And so my current book, the Adrenal Transformation Protocol, focuses on that stress response when we're stuck in a chronic stress response and how to get out of that. Because that could actually lead to people having thyroid issues, and that could lead to a whole host of other health conditions. And it can also mean people who already take thyroid medications, they still don't feel good if the adrenal hormones are not properly balanced.
How can you balance them?
Really, it goes back to getting to the root cause, and that is stress, or what we perceive as stress, what our body perceives as stress. And these are things like nutrient deficiencies, extremes in our lifestyle, such as over-exercising, overworking, undersleeping, under-eating. These can all send danger signals to our bodies. Inflammation, whether from the foods that we eat or some type of pain or perhaps some kind of a infection within our body, these can all lead to our body perceiving stress in our environment. And then we shift into this altered stress state that's known as adrenal dysfunction, where our body basically stops fixing itself, and it really is focused on breaking itself down to get through a stressful time. So we really focus on shifting the signals that we send to the body. So we're eating a nutrient dense diet. We're eating lots of blood sugar balancing foods. We're adding some nutrients that are commonly depleted, such as B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium. These can be really big game changers.
So you're talking about doing it through food versus supplements or hormone replacement therapies, correct?
You can absolutely do a lot with food as medicines. Taking care of your body oftentimes starts with nutrition. A lot of people who have this adrenal dysfunction, this stress syndrome, they're going to be on a blood sugar roller coaster. There's a feedback in the body that can cause that when we're under a lot of stress. And so part of what I would oftentimes recommend is eating more good fats and eating more protein. And that will shift your body into more of a repair state.
How should we know that we might have an actual problem with our adrenal system versus just being stressed out? And B, aside from food, what else can we do to sort of fix that, I guess?
Some of the symptoms might be if you stand up too quickly and you feel lightheaded, if you're having cravings for salt, if you can't start your day without caffeine, if you need some wine to help you wind down, you're craving salty foods, you're craving sugar, maybe you're stepping outside and you feel like a vampire because it's too bright all day long. This can mean that your body is stuck in that stress syndrome. Normally we can sleep it off or kind of shake it off, but when we're sleeping and our sleep is unrefreshed, that can be a sign that we're stuck in that place. And so beyond the diet, there are, of course, lifestyle things we can do. Like if you know that a social media is a source of toxicity for you, perhaps unsubscribing from that. If you have a friend that is toxic in your life, maybe cutting that person out. Of course, inflammatory foods can be a part of that. And I also utilize adaptogenic herbs. What adaptogenic herbs can do is they can give us a little bit more resilience so that we don't feel so affected. I always joke that people become less annoying when our adrenal system is properly balanced, and sometimes adaptogenic herbs can help with that.
What are some of those herbs? Because I'm telling you, I'm checking every single box that you've mentioned. I need caffeine. Everybody's annoying to me. All of the above, everything you said, I'm starting to think, wow, I should probably get that checked out. So how would somebody, if they are checking these boxes like I am, how do you find out that it's actually your adrenal glands?
You can do testing. It's generally available through integrative practitioners. So something like an adrenal saliva test can be helpful, or a Dutch hormone profile can be helpful for that. I do recommend working with a skilled practitioner to interpret those test results. And so this isn't something that your average doctor may be aware of doing. This is more of the lifestyle and functional medicine practitioners that can help you with.
What are these adaptive herbs you were talking about?
I really love ashwagandha. So that's a really popular one that can help with anxiety and energy and better sleep. Then there's holy basil. That can be a very gentle, relaxing herb. It's also available as a tea, such as Tulsi tea. So some people find that just sipping that throughout the day can help them feel more at ease and more calm.
This is fascinating information that I'm sure a majority of people out there have no clue what's going on with themselves. But as you said, as you're checking off the list,
it's all me.
It's there.
I got problems.
What about being cold? Is that a sign of thyroid issues?
Absolutely. Being cold and having cold hands could be a sign of thyroid issues. And it could also be a sign of this adrenal dysfunction. What happens when we're in an adrenal dysfunction state, our body will produce something called reverse T3, which is an inactive version of thyroid hormones that gets into our thyroid receptors and it blocks them. So a person could have a perfectly healthy thyroid, but because they're stuck in that chronic stress state, they could actually experience a lot of thyroid symptoms as well.
Stress, it's awful. How do we get away from it? But thank you for being on the program. We really appreciate it. Dr. Izabella Wentz, the thyroid pharmacist. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thanks, doctor.
Thank you so much for having me.
Make sure you stay tuned. Coming up after the break, a story of recovery. World-renowned Dr. Bonati created the Bonati Spine Procedures to minimize surgery scarring and recovery. 75,000 procedures have resulted in 98.75% satisfaction. Over half our patients suffer from failed surgeries at other facilities. Visit AskBonati.com.
My name is Stephen Bremner. I live here in Ooltewah, Tennessee. Currently working at the Ooltewah Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I'm also going to school to become a professional welder.
Stephen is a dedicated father and husband who enjoys playing with his family. However, all that changed in an instant after an injury at work.
When I was going to school, I was working in a bakery, and there's a big mixing bowl, and I went to pick up the mixing bowl, and I heard something snap in the middle of my back, and that just turns out I got a bulging disc in my mid-back between, I believe it was T8 and T9. I lived with that for approximately 2 years. It came to the point that I couldn't even lift anything in my hands.
Stephen tried to adapt his lifestyle around the pain, but realized he wasn't getting better on his own.
Oh, absolutely. I'm 6'4", and everything that's designed is usually for someone that's about, 5'7" or 5'10", so everything's very low. So, sometimes I'd have to, wash dishes on my knees or, just try and get down lower, because everything I have to do, on the countertops is just stooping over and leaning over, and that just would put more pressure on my back, and it was just awful.
Stephen's doctor prescribed him pain medications. Due to the side effects of the medication and the agonizing pain, his personal relationships began to suffer.
It was affecting my relationship with my wife quite severely. I was on very heavy pain medicine. Starting to become very, addicted to the pain medicine. I was sleeping all the time. I was, moody, just very lethargic, sleepy all the time. Couldn't really do any physical, activity anymore, and I was in the military and like weightlifting, and I just couldn't do any of that anymore. We were constantly in doctor's offices or hospitals or some type of specialists. Physical therapy, we tried it all.
Desperate for help, he sought out specialists near his home, only for them to offer a horribly invasive surgery that would permanently alter his way of life.
I went to some of the local doctors here in Chattanooga, and basically they told me that I'd never have a normal life. What they would have to do is they'd have to open me up from the front, they would have to remove all my organs, and then work on my disc. And they said that would just cause as much pain, and they said, you're just going to be on pain medicine for the rest of your life. And then they said I was looking at least a 6-month recovery time. When surgery wasn't an option, the doctor dropped me as a patient, and then I'd have to find another doctor to go to. And basically the same thing, it was just pain management, just being on narcotics all the time. I was constantly sleeping because of all the pain medication that I was on. I believe my wife and I probably would have been, she had the right to divorce me, because things were just so bad and I couldn't do anything.
Not wanting to go through the agonizing recovery and lifelong pain management, Stephen started researching possible alternative surgeries. That's when some friends recommended the Bonati Spine Institute.
Actually, our pastor went there, and also one of the doctors I was seeing, the family doctor I was seeing, he also went down to the Bonati Institute and told me about it, and we did some research on it.
Stephen called the Bonati Spine Institute and spoke with the patient advocate.
They said, send us your MRIs, and they would say, if we can't help you, we're not going to ask you to come. And that was just very, very impressive to me. And so I got my MRIs, and I sent it down there, and they said they could help me. And so we just set everything up to go down there.
Stephen traveled to Hudson, Florida after hearing he was a good candidate for the exclusive Bonati Spine Procedures.
The Bonati Institute was fantastic. Here in Chattanooga, if I had to get my MRIs, I had to drive, 15 miles to one place, and then go to my doctor 20 miles away. But at the Bonati Institute, they had everything there. It's like they have these little stations that you go to and say, okay, well, here, just everything's connected. So you just go to this building here, and it's, everything's within walking distance. Very professional, less waiting time than when I'd actually go to, the other doctors that I'd have to, go to. Everything was by appointment. They had everything there on campus. It was fantastic.
The targeted Bonati Spine procedures are performed using conscious IV sedation, where the patient remains awake and communicating with their surgeon to ensure their source of pain is eliminated.
I went in there and I was awake, and they put a little monitor, and to me that was cool. I got to actually be awake and see the procedure. It took 45 minutes. I had about an hour recovery, and my wife and I walked out. And we had lunch. And since I had this procedure done, it was in 2002, I believe, I haven't had to go back to the doctor once for my back. I haven't had to be put on any pain medicine for my back.
Now out of pain, Stephen is able to return to work.
Here at the church, I'm up on ladders, I'm changing air filters, I'm changing light bulbs, on the roof of my house, working, replace guttering, at my house, just being able to be active. We had some tornadoes that went through our area a few years ago, and being able to get out there with a chainsaw and cut up the trees and move the logs. I wasn't able to lift, 15 pounds in my hand. It was just excruciating pain. But now I'm able to lift, heavy logs and, chop wood out there. It's just incredible.
Stephen highly recommends anyone suffering from neck or back pain to contact the Bonati Spine Institute.
You have nothing to lose, to give it a shot. And again, I can only speak, for myself. It was a life-changing event for me and my family. And I can speak from my own personal experience that I am living a productive life because of what the Bonati Institute did for me, and the doctors and the nurses, and they were very professional. Before I had the procedure, I would have never been able to pick up my kids, and I would have never been able to hold them as, as little babies, and that means the world to me. I'm able to do things and interact with my kids as the husband, and be able to do yard work and get on my roof and do things and mow the yard is, things I wasn't able to do before.
Stephen credits the Bonati Spine Institute with giving him his life back.
These are my daughters, Sarah, she's 7, and Katie, and she's 6, and being able to go out to the park and, play with them, and, there's, still small enough where they need my help, lifting them up, on the monkey bars or something, and just being able to do that just means the world to me. Being able to, just come home and horse around with them and play around with them on the floor. It's not something I was able to do before. And being able to have my girls on my lap, and to be able to play with them, that, as a father, that just warms my heart. That just really means everything to me with my family.
I think everybody was shocked, like, really, you had surgery today? I had a drain tube. I was at my desk doing payroll for 200 employees, worked till night. Got up, went to bed.
That afternoon, when it was done, I actually felt so much better already.
6 days after surgery, I was back in the gym, slowly but surely working my way back to fighting, back to basically 100% of fighting, So 6 days, and everybody wasn't all like, "Didn't you just get out of surgery?" I'm like, "Yeah, I feel great." And like, "Okay, let's see how you do." And I was rolling with everybody, and I'm in the advanced class, so. That sounds a lot right there.
First time I came in here was Monday, and today is Thursday. I've had 2 surgeries and am doing fantastic. I'm still in shock that I can walk. That's all within 4 days.
Bonati succeeds where others fail.
Welcome back to American Medicine Today. So most Americans would be shocked to learn that our own government outsourced control of product safety and importation to a foreign government, in this case, Canada. That's bad enough, but it actually gets worse. They've also been suppressing the news on all this and even banned an explosive new book exposing that whole tale. Joining us to discuss is Gordon Knight, author of Deep Six Diaries. Thank you for joining us, Gordon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So why don't you tell us how you first got involved with this entire debacle involving the Canadian government and what it was exactly that you went through?
Sure. Well, I own a small business, a very small, by the way. I am the company most of the time. We publish electrical guidebooks, the sort of thing that helps you wire your house or your basement or whatever safely and in compliance with the law. Okay. And we've been doing that for about 5 decades, so we're quite good at it. We've been around for a long time. But a little while ago, the Canadian government decided it would be a terrific idea for them to publish a competitor guidebook competing against us. Now, a regular businessman responds to that by upping their game, right? But the civil service doesn't really necessarily work that way. Their solution was to use the power of government to suppress our publications, and that hit me. And that's what began an 11-year saga of government abuses, the Canadian version of the deep state, where they're trying to litigate me out of existence, lawfare, using regulatory to ban books in whole jurisdictions within the country, and then to use civil service powers to arrange rulings in court. Now, in this sordid 11-year process, I was, by necessity, for survival, doing a lot of research into what this Canadian government agency was doing. It's an agency called CSA Group. It likes to call itself a private company, but really it's staffed by civil servants. It's like proving the Department of Transport is part of government. It's pretty clearly a government entity. And they're doing everything on the medical side in Canada and in the United States of approving medical instruments, new medical, not procedures, but products for importation into this country. And I was starting to unravel what it was they were doing inside the United States, and it was pretty nasty stuff. Now, as I started reporting on this, they started getting much more nasty. It's unpopular. So one of the things that you mentioned, the book being banned, that book explains all of what they're doing in the U.S., how they got here. They're not actually legally allowed to be operating in the United States. They're certainly not supposed to be doing product certifications in this country, but they are. The book exposes it, and that's why it got banned.
According to my own research, it's illegal for a foreign government to be operating within the borders of the United States. How did they do that? And how did they get away with it for so long? And are they continuing to get away with it? I'm guessing the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. It's an emphatic yes. In fact, this little government agency, CSA, has more employees in the U.S. right now than they have in their own country. Wow. So it's yes in a big way, because this is where the money is. If they can control import into the U.S., they're rolling in it. As for whether they can come into this country, you're right again. You actually have to register if you're representing another country with the Department of State just to fly across the border. It's not like being a tourist.
Right.
But the civil servants in this country look the other way. It's sort of a quid pro quo. The Canadian civil service does favors for the U.S. and vice versa. So in this country, they overlook what CSA is doing.
Aren't they also outsourcing American jobs to China?
CSA found they could make a ton of money off U.S. companies by opening up Chinese operations to certify U.S. products for import in China itself, where incidentally, it's a lot more flexibility, let's say, from a civil service perspective, because there's no oversight in China. So we uncovered a wealth of product certifications that are actually fraudulent. That is, there's no actual safety testing going on. In many cases, these products do not meet the safety minimums in this country for import at all, but they bear the certification marks so they can get them across the water. So there's a lot of money in it, and that's what's driving all of these civil servants in Canada to operate in the U.S. in outsourcing jobs into Asia.
Do you know if there's been any deaths because of, I'm assuming the answer is probably overwhelmingly yes, deaths attributed to products that were approved by this Canadian corporation? Do you know any specifics about people that have died because of products they said were okay because they're kind of looking the other way because they want to make money on it?
Yes, and it's a fairly regular occurrence, sad to say. But just off the top of my head, there was a gentleman in the state of Ohio, an elderly man, who was walking down a hallway past a heater that had been certified by CSA. The heater, just as he happened to walk by it, was shooting flames out sideways, laterally about 2 feet, caught his shirt on fire. He's an elderly man, could not get off fast enough, and ended up with what the court described as permanent disfiguring injury. That's one instance. We've got 3 individuals from only 2 years ago that died in Kentucky. 2 of them were children in a house fire as a result of a heater that was certified as safe that, again, clearly was demonstrably unsafe. We've got another gentleman in the state of California who was actually an employee at CSA, a senior certifier or a manager there, who quit his job, or rather was fired, force fired, let's say, for refusing to falsely certify medical devices. Wow. They were demanding he do this, falsify certain certifications and testing in order to get the devices to market in trade for cash. That went to court. Now, look, each of these items end up in court. But again, we're dealing with the civil service. Endless money, deep pockets. They can grind you, as they've done with me. I remind you, I'm going into year number 12 of trying to defend myself. That's how they're able to get through a court process over and over again.
And you actually fled to Texas, right? Just to get away from what they were doing to you, because they seized your bank accounts, right? They tried to basically shut everything down.
Cancel you.
That's correct. It was a cancellation. And if you remember the truckers' protest from a couple of years ago, same kind of idea. They'd reach into my, incidentally, U.S. bank account and withdrew about 50 grand in punishment for money laundering.
What?
I've never done money laundering in my life, but this is the excuse they used to get the job done. So yes, I did have to flee the country. They were starting, let's call them arranged rulings, where in one particular case, between myself and CSA, the civil service appointed a CSA employee to be the judge in court between us. So you get trial rigging going on. In that context, it was very unsafe to remain. And so, yes, I actually fled the country with a carry-on bag. That's all I could bring with me. It was at the last minute. I have applied for political asylum in the U.S. And, while we've got issues down here, no doubt, in Canada, they're at least 2 years ahead in terms of how they're drifting off to lawlessness up there. So I am seeking refuge down here. It's out of the frying pan into the fire, but I think I'm better off.
I think they shut down the link on Amazon to your book after just a couple of days. You can clarify that. But like you said, they almost completely erased you from existence. You've even called your book Deep Six Diaries one of the rarest books in America. Where can I get a copy? If it's one of these super rare books, I want one.
I'd love to arrange for that. Listen, I need the cash, so I would love to sell books, but I'm not able to do that right now. We have been banned from taking any credit card transactions online because of the money laundering allegations, so I can sell nothing, not even our electrical books. I've been banned out of Amazon on the false charge that my book is a counterfeit. Friends, my name is on the cover of the book. It's clearly not a counterfeit. But this is how they ban you without officially banning you, that you just disappear. Right. So right now, the only place to get information is deep6diaries.com. So it's deep6diaries.com. There's information there, but I can't actually sell you a book. I'd love to, but for the moment, I cannot.
Real quick, from a consumer standpoint, is there any way that we can avoid buying
These
products that
yes.
were, approved
Dangerous.
that are dangerous because they were approved by this organization?
Yes, there is. If you look in the back of your product, it'll have a little CSA logo, big C and SA inside it. And if you see that logo, if you've got a choice, pick a different product. If it says CSA, you stay away. It just isn't worth the risk. That's the best advice I can give.
We certainly applaud the great work that you've done to uncover the truth here, Gordon.
Well, thank you so much. And I am working not only with shows like yourselves, but I'm trying to work with political figures as well to try to get that kind of correction. These things take time. It's a bit like slowing down the Titanic before you hit the iceberg. So we're working on it.
Well, God bless you. Thank you so much, Gordon Knight, for being on the program.
Thanks, Gordon.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Take great care. Thank you so much for watching American Medicine Today. Check us out next Saturday. We'll be right here at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you've missed a previous episode, head over to YouTube and check out American Medicine Today.
If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the number below. You can tweet at Dr. Bonati using hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.